right. Well, we are back in the Torrentia podcast studio. We're really excited to have Alicia Mahoney here with BCMS. I'm going to just start out. Alicia, what is BCMS?
BCMS, Business and Clinical Management Services.
All right.
But everybody knows us as BCMS.
Okay. And what do you do?
What do we do? Well, I'll give you a little background. We actually started out, much like you, as a private practice in 1985. And in 2000, my mother, the founder of the company, decided that there really needed to be someone out there who could help practices find that compliance foundation. And I know you and I've joked about compliance. I call myself the fun sponge because we do deal a lot with those infrastructure, putting things in place, making sure that you're not missing anything. And so that's our core bread and butter of what we do.
Earlier this year in January at the Breakthrough event, you and I discussed how many practices are adding cash services such as direct current, ARPWave, Newbie, laser, shockwave, and they're putting them into their practices. But there's a compliance element about education that really kind of grabbed my attention. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. It's imperative that when you bring in these services, you have proper education. And we can only do so much of that part. We're going to help you with the infrastructure. We're going to make sure that you've got your OSHA, HIPAA, fraud and abuse. But so often we see clients who take these cash-based services or these, new product lines that are out there, and they don't really know how to properly do it in an ethical way that really adhere to your outcome-based services. And so with us, when you came up and we were talking and I was like, wait, this guy literally does the missing piece that so many of my clients need, it became like, we need to talk now. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that really struck me about, compliance, as much as it isn't a fun conversation, it is imperative, it is necessary, it is not optional. And your practice really should incorporate some semblance of a foundation. 1 in 6 providers last year shared with me that they were ready to just completely walk away from the profession, and some of them even worse. There's a little bit of a mental health crisis going on with practice owners. And last year, the statistic that just absolutely blew my mind is internally with Torrentia is about 1 in 6 providers shared with us that they were in a mental health crisis. The talks of suicide were well, above, what I had expected, and I think that really making sure that businesses are built on a solid foundation from not just a compliance standpoint, but an education standpoint, because if we can teach providers how to implement cash services legally and ethically in a way that benefits our patients, the revenue will be there.
Yes.
And I really think that's going to be one of the ways that we can really collaborate on helping providers is not just getting the education, not just becoming, a compliant practice or a bubble buddy shielded, practice. But I think that really helping providers not just sleep well at night, but also increase their revenue, earn more, because PTs are burnt out.
Yes.
They're at a complete and total loss in terms of how they are going about their day to day. The most impressive thing that I see is how excited students are at events like CSM. I was just there last week with Jody, from BCMS.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're ready to go. But by year 5, they look like they just came back from war.
Yeah.
They're disgruntled. They're tired, they're overworked, they're underpaid, the debt is crushing them.
Yes.
And that's part of the reason why, you got to take a tour, today of Remedy Live.
Amazing.
Here in Fort Wayne, where we got to go around and see all that they're doing, having crucial conversations in schools, and really they're helping nationwide, have and engage those conversations. Just about anything, but also about mental health. And, really what we're doing here with Torrentia is supporting that cause. And, providers, we hear you, providers, we know that's where you're at. And I'm just really happy to have BCMS on board with what we're doing with that, and looking forward to seeing how that progresses.
Yeah, just another unbelievable resource out there that's normalizing mental health and that you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that every single person I talk to, and we talk to a lot of people, every single one say the words, "I need to be able to sleep at night."
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we really are trying to help provide, because it's just like building a house. You would not have a foundation. But yes, we see very few clients have things actually in place before. One of the truths of our industry is, unfortunately, there's no one in your schooling that says, "Hey, here's Compliance 101." They have it in other industries, but they don't in ours. And so with ours, it's one of those things where they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of them are just like, "I'm small," or "I'm just cash." And they think that nothing applies to them. And then when they start to realize, wait, I'm adding things, my staff is growing, maybe I am on the radar, that's when their anxiety goes up. And then they're like, can I continue doing this?
Yeah, definitely. Well, audits are on the rise. I'm sure profit margins, especially in some of the traditional models, are razor thin. And many owners, they really feel like they're working harder, and they don't really have a lot to show for it.
Yeah.
So cash services, shockwave, laser, even some nutritional counseling where allowed, are really becoming alluring to practice owners to add to their practice because they see 20 and 30% profit margins. So they hurry up and buy a device. They're super excited about it. They go to take it into their practice. And I feel that there are some things that clinicians run into.
Sure.
One of them, they have zero foundation in place. You guys provide the foundation, right? Like with BCMS, it's not just, oh, I did bloodborne pathogen training now that I'm doing dry needling. How many pages do you guys provide practice owners, or can you provide practice owners?
Well, so we actually cover a multitude of topics, okay, or categories, if you will. We cover your business office, so everything from like your intake to like your good faith estimates, things to that extent. Clinical operations. This is going to be things where you're really working through your patient care, grievance policies, things of that. Then we get into the one that applies to everyone no matter what, which is your OSHA. And that's everything from fryer drills to needle stick policies to, really know how you clean your practice. And of course, we cover HIPAA, and then we do also HR as well, and, a handbook and things to that extent. But we really do try. This is where I got very excited when I first met you, is how often you go into places and see the lack thereof. These things.
You mean no compliance manual at all? There's no policy and procedure manual, or my personal favorite, hey, you're adding a new item like ultrasound gel to your clinic. Do you have an MSDS sheet that I can look at to see what you've been using or not using? And what's an MSDS sheet?
Ben, it's crazy. And I got to tell you, I talk to a lot of people where they'll say, "Oh, I have a handbook." And they think that they're completely covered. And the handbook came from ADP. And it has nothing to do with healthcare.
Yep.
Or they're like, you know what? I have compliance because I have an AI tool that helps me with my documentation or, my scribing. And they're missing all of the actual written procedures that really protect you. It's all about protecting your people, and whatnot. So that's really where, compliance, no matter where you get it, is important.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was eye-opening to me when it came to understanding the vitality of compliance was it's the state board's job to protect the public from providers. It is not the state board's job to protect the provider. Your policies, your procedures, your compliance training, those are designed to protect providers.
Yes. OSHA, a lot of people think that that's to protect the patient, and it is not. That is actually protecting your people. And so not to go negative, but the number one way that you have an OSHA audit is from an employee complaint.
Right.
They don't feel safe, and so they complain.
I'm going to bring up some really painful points for practice owners. You have a rip or a tear in a plinth. If you're not addressing that, call Alicia. If you do not have an eye wash station, call Alicia. I think so many of these practices, because, Ray, Bruce, and I, we
Mhm.
teach in so many different places all around the country. And the number one thing that I see is when I walk into a clinic, my eyes immediately go to all the things that need fixed.
Yeah,
And then I have practice owners call me and they say, "Hey, Ben, I've got this issue." And I'm like, "Call an attorney."
I know. And attorneys are so expensive.
They are. So you can do much of what some general
Mhm.
counsel would do in terms of providing the appropriate documents, getting people set and ready. Um, so I just want to shift gears a little bit
Sure.
is as more clinicians grow and scale,
Mhm.
the foundation is critical.
Mhm.
And BCMS provides the infrastructure such that providers are not just Loctite with adding their cash services,
Mhm.
but also prevent them from running into future issues.
Sure.
Meaning, when Medicare does show up
Mhm.
to do a site visit or a site audit, you are there to really say, okay, here's how you walk through that process.
Mhm.
And that's been really cool. Talk to me a little bit. You talk very highly of your mom, right?
I
Miss
do.
Mary. I
Yes.
haven't had the privilege of meeting her in person, but I have heard so much about her. Talk to me a little bit about her legacy.
Man, that is such a fun thing as a daughter to talk about. And I've had the privilege to work with her for almost 15 years now. But she's a specimen.
Hmm.
She started in '85, like I said, as opening up her own practice and wanted to just do compliance, which who does that? And she's
Yep.
really, really, really good at that. And she's been just instrumental in lobbying and being part of
Hmm.
our industry as a whole. She's just a champion of trying to better the industry and was very instrumental in helping with direct access in the early 90s. And so she's been, like I said, a champion from the get-go. Um, she's a legend with a number of our partners as
Yep.
she can hang with the best of them. And I think that I can't wait for you to actually sit down with her, maybe have a bourbon or two with her.
I would love that.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you said that stuck out to me in your
Mhm.
presentation at Breakthrough
Mhm.
was you said, and I quote, growth magnifies what's already there.
Yeah.
And if you don't have systems and processes in place and something happens, that's magnified.
Mhm.
If your staff makes a mistake with a patient, whether that's a needle stick injury,
Mhm.
whether that's a pneumothorax, in light of recent news, those policies and procedures are typically what you fall back on.
Mhm.
And I know you're not here to scare providers. You
I
said that
know.
about 15
I
times the
know.
last time I heard you present, but there is an element of responsibility as a practice owner. If you want to make higher dollar amounts in your clinic, higher dollar amount equals higher
Yeah.
responsibility and also higher risk.
Yes.
So talk to me about how BCMS helps practice owners sleep at night. Like, what are some of the tacticals that you guys use as a company to help practice owners?
Well, I like to give kind of an overview to make compliance more digestible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really 3 or 4 pillars of risk.
Mm-hmm.
There's payment, so that's if you take insurance or not, because even cash-based services, you need to abide by your state laws and your Practice Act. There is privacy, that's your HIPAA.
Yep.
And then there is your people, that's your OSHA. And then there's your professional liability. That's
Yep.
how you are from an ethical provider. And so, with these 4 real pillars of categories, you can really break down knowing that you need to just have
Mm-hmm.
policies and procedures, education and training, and you need to have reinforcement and monitoring.
Yep.
So many people think, oh, I have a manual that has been sitting in an office for the last 4 years that hasn't been touched, looked at, modified, and has dust on it. Nobody can even see it. And so what's the use of it? It's just paper.
Right.
And so literally this morning was looking at an email from a client who had a needle stick yesterday. And they are a relatively new client. And the first thing we directed them to was their environment health and safety manual to go through their needle stick policy, because there's a true protocol of what to do and how to, document it appropriately and all
Yep.
those things. Because ultimately, again, I'm going to go back to the employee. If the employee felt that how it was handled was not safe or proper, that's when it comes back and bites you. And if you've got
Mhm.
all this in writing, suddenly it's like, I'm okay.
Yep.
Incidents are going to happen. I
Mhm.
think that
They
one
are.
of the things that you see a lot, and especially with like the stuff that you guys provide with education, is it can be the difference between negligence and an incident by having something in writing. If
Yep.
you don't have proof that you've educated properly and whatnot, literally, you have no way of saying that this was done appropriate.
Yeah. So why does compliance matter so much when you're adding new services, right? Like we hear all the time, I just want to add cash services to increase my margin. Why is compliance so critical for that?
Put you on the radar. Nobody likes to hear those. And I
Mhm.
want to say you can be a small practice and add, different things that are going to put you on the radar. A lot of people don't think about the fact that cash-based services can absolutely be associated with anti-kickback statutes
Mhm.
and remuneration. And
Yep.
so if you're doing these new cash services and you're not doing them correctly, um, people
Mhm.
whistle blow. That's a very big thing that happens with those. And so again, we are totally in favor of every one of our clients adding cash-based services,
Mhm.
anything to that because we want you to have the profit margin. We want your vitality. We want you to be happy. And we also want to see what is really exciting, and that's seeing the patient care
Right.
really elevate. And
Yep.
so we just want to make sure you're doing it right.
Yep. Well, with the rise of artificial intelligence and the rise of technology, I've really seen my patients, especially in the past 3 years, be much more prepared coming to their visit. Meaning they come to me and say, Ben, I know you use Focus Shockwave in your clinic. I want Focus Shockwave,
Mhm.
right? And then there's this element of, okay, the patient wants it. They're clearly educated on it. They're seeking it out. But we then have an ethical duty, right? You and I talked, our education classes tee providers up
Mhm.
for the number of sessions
Mhm.
based on the research for a given condition.
I love
We're
that.
not selling 25 visits just because.
Mhm.
We're selling 25 visits because that's what the literature tells us we should be recommending, which for those anti-kickback statutes
Mhm.
and some of the things we talked on our webinar with your mom, you're making an ethical clinical decision, not a decision based in this is going to make me more money.
It makes my heart so happy to hear you say things like that. I just love hearing that the way your education is designed is from research
Mm-hmm.
and from clinical outcomes. And it makes someone like me who is always saying, I'm the fun sponge, don't do this, don't do that.
Yep.
It makes me feel very comfortable and confident that there is people like you and Ray out there just really providing unbelievable guidance, education that is sound
Yep.
and ethical and compliant. My word.
You mean I can't offer my new cash services for free to get patients through the door?
No.
So that's what BCMS does is you guys take the what I am and am not allowed to do, you marry it with what is specific to your state practice
Mhm.
act, what is relevant to your clinic, number of employees, etc., and help not only the practice mitigate risk, but also from a marketing front. Because I see this all the time where I see practices advertise something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hey, we're doing a free clinic for free service on this date. And the providers are incentivized to then recommend those services. And even with, CMS, I know your mom on our webinar really went deep on that, which
Mhm.
I'm really thankful for. So if you missed that, please, catch it, that you can watch that. But I really want to just point out, something that I heard, last month. And it was right after breakthrough. And I was talking to some individuals about compliance and their practices and really how Torrentia is going to move forward in 2026. And we talked about partnering together some. And I wrote down some notes. And this is what my colleague said. He said, education builds competency, compliance builds protection, Sustainable practices build both. And I think that really shows that there's a lot of continuing education companies out there. There are a lot of wannabe compliance companies out there, or wannabe compliance coaches and consultants. And providers are just at a loss. They go, well, what do I do? And really what we're talking about is marrying a lot of those services, bringing a lot of those elements together so that when you take a dry needling course, you get your bloodborne pathogens taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
When you sign up for a specific course, you knock out your HIPAA for the year at the same time. And we're really talking about doing this in a way that I think will benefit providers, but I really want to make sure that our clinicians are integrity selling their services, integrity selling. And I think that's the critical piece, is because we were at Breakthrough. You heard my talk. It was, Ben, how do I motivate my staff to sell more? And I looked and I said, outcome-based care. What do you mean? Well, the research says you should do 6 visits of focus shockwave for this specific condition. So what should your session sell be to your patients? The research says it's going to take, on average, 4 to 6 visits to treat you fill in the blank condition. This is the cost. Here's transparency with that. And then you have the infrastructure to back that up.
Absolutely. Can't say enough about you having that. And again, I just want to rubber stamp that you guys are using clinical research to make this determination versus buy 10, get 1 free or things to that extent. Because again, you're basing it off of the patient's needs.
Correct.
Not, which I know we all want to make money, but the beauty is these cash-based services do give you on average 20 to 30% greater revenue, which really means you're seeing more patients, less visits, which equals just as much cash.
Exactly. So I'm going to shift gears.
Okay.
When do providers or practice owners, or I should say, when should private practice owners revisit their policies and procedures?
Well, let's say minimally annually, but when you need them, that's what they're there for. So if, again, like I said, we had a client yesterday who had a needle stick. Go to your policies. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. You have a HIPAA breach. Go to your policy. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. We recommend a quarterly HIPAA security awareness training. And it's funny, everything that I do or we say sometimes will feel like a project for somebody because I'm telling them, oh, there's one more thing to do. But the reality is I could point to an example of how it's going to protect you in the long run. So like HIPAA security awareness, if you were doing these quarterly and they take all of 10 minutes and you had a HIPAA breach, suddenly when you report yourself to the OCR, which nobody wants to do, but you have to, you can point to the fact that you have done quarterly security awareness training. And that now you've gone in and had a conversation with that staff member or whomever had the breach. And then it looks way less in the eyes of the OCR because you're actually doing things correctly. Again, it's negligence versus an incident.
Correct.
Same thing.
Yeah. When should providers be getting their HIPAA training taken care of?
Annually, minimally, and upon hire. And a lot of people think that when you first come on, even if you have had it before, you always want to make sure that they have competency in it.
Sure. How about fire drills? When should people be implementing fire drills?
You should be doing a minimum of 2 drills a year. You can do a table drill, and with patients, for crying out loud, you should know how to get your people out of the building. And we always tell people, make sure that you've got a designated place where you do a head count. A lot of people don't understand that these are things that will save someone's life if you know how to do them.
Exactly. So you guys don't just do the aforementioned things, right?
Yeah.
You're not just I'm going to print a policy and procedure manual and call it a day. You've introduced me to what you launched last April, which is the BCMS bubble.
Yes, the bubble.
Please just tell me about the bubble and why is the bubble important?
The bubble is it's amazing. It's the infrastructure of a compliance program, which is required by enrollment, by all of the different regulators, but it makes it in a turnkey solution that tracks, documents, and monitors everything. And it also has the ability to create your own custom policies and procedures that are going to fit your practice and not just some generic overriding health, related whatever. It does really address AI
Hmm.
because there's a lot of misconception out there. Oh, I can just get my policies and procedures from AI. ChatGPT, they'll write you something, but whether it's completely accurate is another thing. These regulations change every time Congress meets. So
Yep.
guess what? You can have one thing that was said, last year, and it can completely change to this year. And I can give you examples of that. But, those are the kind of things that we want to make sure that you're saying.
I think your mom might be the only person that I know that's ever corrected ChatGPT.
Yes.
And that's an impressive thing to
Mhm.
do, knowing that ChatGPT has access to the fully revised
Mhm.
code of whatever scope or
Yes.
manuscript that is. And she's been a wealth of knowledge, I know. And I know that she's probably helped a lot of people over the years.
Yes. When the Medicare physician fee schedule came out, she asked ChatGPT, Gronk, and Copilot a question. All three got them incorrect, and she went and cited the source in the new Medicare physician fee schedule.
That's awesome. One reason that I really wanted to have this conversation is I wanted to make sure that those that are in the Torrentia tribe, those that have taken Torrentia courses, I want to help them grow and I want to see them grow. And we've been working with so many private practices, from 15 people to 10 people, all the way up to almost 300 people in terms of their practices. But I want to make sure they're protected. It's the number of times I get a phone call, Ben, I just had this happen, or I need something. Where do I find? How do I get? It's always been the attorney, answer. And I'm really excited that BCMS really provides a turnkey solution for a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean, in your words, with the compliance bubble. And it's not complicated. It's not crazy expensive. That's the thing that I want to just continue to harp with people is it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You guys have figured it out. It's hard if you try to go it alone, or you are reactive as opposed to proactive. So real quick, you kind of grew up in a physical therapy clinic.
Yes, I did.
You've watched the field change over time. How does the landscape look now versus how it looked then when you first set foot in a physical therapy clinic?
Wow, you're going philosophical on me.
I am.
Love this. Okay. Well, back in the 80s and 90s, when I was a tech and an aide and I, was in the clinic, insurance was the game of the name of the game. And it was, God, things have changed so much. To see things like what you guys are doing with these cash-based services and with outcome-based services is exciting to me because, like, personally, my mom's clinic was pretty cutting edge. She got a laser early on that she used primarily for like scar tissue and some other things. To see how far laser has come today and what it can be used for, and to know that there's services like yours out there that is educating on all the different variables that it can be used. Tell me, I want to ask you, with laser, how many different things can you think that it can help with besides the one that they always say?
Right. Well, pain is the obvious one. We're using and seeing laser being used for everything from edema to temporary inflammation or acute inflammation, like a epicondylitis or bicipital tendonitis. We're seeing it used in chronic cases with peripheral neuropathy. We're using it used with chronic low back pain, knee osteoarthritis. I mean, it's not just pain, but it's also swelling, and it's helping our patients return to function faster because we have very few tools that we can use that take away somebody's pain. I mean, I'm a decent manual therapist. I won't toot my horn very much, but I'm a manual therapist. I'm a fellow of manual therapy, which means I'm decent with my hands. But what we see is providers that marry that manual therapy with laser, well, now their patients are returning to function faster. They're returning to sport much quicker. And the patient has buy-in. We talk about compliance in one element with our practices, but we often, in a way, poo-poo patient compliance a lot of times because we recommend home exercise programs. We recommend getting nutritional counseling. We recommend the patient goes back to the doctor to get some blood work done, and the patients are non-compliant. And then what that does is when they come into us, they say, oh, my back still hurts. Well, now with laser and some of these other modalities, marrying them together, the patient feels better on the first or second visit. Not 100%, but they at least see a meaningful change. It might even be an MCID. It might be this, wow, actually, this is making a huge impact in a short period of time. Maybe I should do those exercises that, he encouraged me to do. And that's really what we're trying to do with all of our content. We have our OBH course, our orthobiological hacker, which is essentially all of the technologies. We even throw some supplement and nutrition things in there because it's important. Talk about peptides because your patients are going to come in and ask you about peptides. They're going to say, I want to use it. And you're going to go, it's not really FDA approved except for this one specific peptide. And they're going to go, well, I've been shooting it up every day. And you're going to go, that might be a lethal dose to at least educate providers enough to go, that shouldn't be happening right now. And then we've got our advanced specialty practice. These are more of your niche practices that they're adding pelvic floor physical therapy. They're adding concussion, physical therapy. They're adding vestibular therapy. And providers may have had an intro to those things, but they don't really know how to start a program.
Sure.
They don't really know how to say, okay, we bought a laser. How can we use our laser with pelvic floor applications? How can we create a postpartum program? How can we create a, prenatal program? How can we create a vestibular concussion clinic for the local high schools and use our technology to get us 33% faster outcomes, but do it in a way that's consistent with the literature, which is ethical?
See, you answered the question for me. You asked me how I saw the physical therapy industry change since my infancy, and there's the answer right there. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. And it's also, I feel like what you guys are providing is also allowing clinicians to take back their power and to actually have a solution for the horrific reimbursement rates that we see. And so now they have the ability to have a hybrid practice if they want to still, see insurance, clients. But at the same time, there is solutions out there that does make a difference in their practice and the revenue.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask just a couple of questions. These are hypothetical questions for our clinicians that I think are very, very critical.
Okay.
Because if you're sitting there thinking these are questions that I'm asking myself or, I'm asking, that is the time to call Alicia. Okay. So here's the first question, really, really simple. My staff member complained to the Better Business Bureau about me as their employer. What do I do?
Well, for one, you better look at your policies and make sure that you have them very clearly and that the employee was trained and you have documented training. Not just that they've signed off in the handbook, all of the things. You're going to want to make sure there. Two, anytime you have any kind of complaint, that could result in an audit. So you're going to want to make sure that things are buttoned up, whether that is, again, your OSHA, HIPAA, fraud abuse, any of the things. But the start would be having, and one of the things, and let me back up for a second, because one of the things that we really like to communicate to our clients is to have good communication with your staff. They need to have the ability to voice concern, to voice, hey, I'm new here, but I think that you may be doing this incorrectly. If they're scared to tell you that and you've been treating patients the same way for 35 years, there is a chance that they could actually be, correct. And so you should have that kind of open communication. So I'd start there.
I had a practice owner early last year who asked me if I could help them not only implement shockwave laser multi-waveform technologies into their practice, but the question was, I need you to help me change my culture.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, I'm open to that. Like, I like planning fun events and doing some fun
Mhm.
things. And I said, well, when was the last time that you met with your staff regularly? Like, do you meet with them quarterly? Do you meet like monthly team meetings? Do you do like weekly team powwows? I don't meet with my staff. And I looked at him, I said, do you expect that just an email is going to resolve changing your culture? And it really came down to, I went one by one, interviewed every employee in the whole entire company, which was a task. I mean, we're talking, it was a task.
Sure.
And what I learned is the staff all had these wild misconceptions about the way that the practice owner lived their life and what they did and where they went and what their life was about and what the mission of the company was. That was my favorite question. What is the mission? What is the mission of blank company?
I bet you got 10 different answers.
And one of them, was talking about, speech and occupational therapy and physical therapy. And I looked at him, I said, there are only physical therapists working at this business.
No.
Which told me right away, there are some question marks. We'll come to find out. We go to the website, and the website mentions speech and OT and some of these other services.
Okay.
And I asked, have the owner, have you ever had people who are on staff who do this? Well, yeah, we were going to start there. And I'm like, it's still on your website. You've been open for who knows how long.
Sure.
And I share that with you from how does then BCMS get involved? I show up at the same clinic and say, okay, culture, let's look at your tenets of culture. What are my tenets of culture? What's your vision statement? We don't have one. Where are you going in life?
Right. I know all the above.
Where's your direction?
All the above.
Where are your policies and procedures? Where are your, and it came very glaring to me that as we as Torrentia help clinical practices, as we help individuals start cash-based practices, as we're asked to kind of team up to say, hey, what's worked for you? What hasn't worked for you? We want to make sure that people are being compliant, and that's where I think, BCMS fits perfectly, is with that.
Well, I just think I can't say enough about you as a person and your mission of how you communicate with your clients. You aren't just providing an awesome service, you're being a sounding board for them. Yep. And that's just, again, critical for, I think, both of our missions, which is to better our industry.
Yep.
And so, our goal is to help protect. And that's the easiest way that I can describe BCMS. And yours is not far off from that, because you definitely are providing a service that protects them. And I think there's going to be some real good chemistry here.
Well, Alicia, thank you so much for flying up to Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm glad that the weather has been decent for you while you're here. If providers want to get involved with BCMS, do you have a website?
Yes, we have a website, bcmscomp.com. That's the easiest way to find us, but you can also certainly, contact me. We can give you the contact information. But we'd love to talk to any of your, clients or your contacts, absolutely, to help this protection.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and look forward to having continued conversations about it.
Sounds great. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the time.